Support is provided in part by Conway Shield. Those who answer the call and risk it all for the safety and well-being of others deserve someone willing to give their all in return. Conway Shield is built on the shoulders of 3 service legacies. Customizing the nation's very best firefighting shields has expanded to providing the most effective technology, tools, and training for today's fire and law leaders. Learn more at conwayshield.com.
Hello and welcome to the Leadership Under Fire, Humanizing the Narrative podcast. Shaun Ferguson is a member of the Cherry Hill Fire Department where he has served since 2016. He is currently assigned to Special Operations Squad and Hazmat Company 13. Shaun plays a key role in the administration of the Cherry Hill Fire Department Recruit Academy, where he is a member of the fire instructor cadre, teaching in both engine operations and hazardous materials disciplines. As part of the Recruit Academy command staff, Shaun serves as a drill instructor, taking on a formative role in shaping new firefighters. He is also an integral member of the department's human performance team, where he has been instrumental in introducing and cultivating human performance training for recruit and probationary firefighters. In addition to his work with the Cherry Hill Fire Department, Shaun has contributed to the Leadership Under Fire Emerging Leaders Development course. This conversation is from a course session. Shaun also served in the New Jersey Air National Guard as a fire protection specialist from 2011 to 2021, deploying in various locations around the world.
All right, guys, what's going on? I just want to start by saying it's an honor and privilege to be able to speak with you all tonight. My journey, as you heard, I'm assigned. I was lucky enough to be assigned here to the Squad and Hazmat Company in Cherry Hill, and what that means pretty much is that I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by studs every day that come to work. So almost or probably everything that you hear from me tonight, I've picked up from the guys I work with and have met along the way. So I can't take too much credit for it. Why it's me here speaking tonight is I first got involved with Leadership Under Fire, I believe it was 2021, and the Cherry Hill Fire Department was awarded a grant, and we had Leadership Under Fire come in and teach a 5-day course, similar to the MPI program that they run in the FDNY. We ran our entire department through, so I was kind of just told to be in there, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Well, right at the beginning, Jason Bresler, who some of you may have met, some of you may not, he'll be on later if he's not on already. He starts off with a picture on the screen, and it has an aerial device to a roof, kind of going over a couple windows with fire blowing out them. And he asked the question to the class: is this gentleman, the fireman climbing the aerial, that's like kind of going through a little bit of a flame impingement, is he being safe or unsafe? And that's it. That's all the information we got. So, everyone wants to ask more questions, and everyone refuses to kind of pick a side. And it's like kind of a thought exercise that gets everyone talking. Excuse me. And at the end of it, we all decide, like, well, you need information, right? Like, it depends on what's going on, depends on the circumstances. It's not as easy as just being safe or unsafe. And immediately I was like, okay, like, this is kind of interesting. Where's he going with this thing? And the class went on. I won't give away all their tricks and everything, but then I met Jimmy Mack, who I believe was week 1 for you guys. And he started, he said something that really stuck with me, and I just saw him, today's Tuesday, I saw him Sunday, and he said it once again, and he was like, yeah, our firehouse is filled with books on how the buildings behave that under fire conditions, how the fire behaves, how our equipment behaves, how our PPE behaves, but no one is studying or talking about how we behave in these fire conditions and under pressure and all that. And I was intrigued and interested. So that it got me in the deep dive in this human performance end of things. And as you heard in my well-written out introduction from Jake, I started heading up this MPI program that we run our fire department through, our new recruits through. It's woven into the Recruit Academy, and it's kind of been woven into the fabric of everything we do here at the Cherry Hill Fire Department. So we'll probably talk about that a little more. When they asked me to speak in this program, I said, yeah, absolutely. I'd be honored to. I said, what would you like me to talk about? And Jason and Jay said, we want you to speak about building a leadership and performance file cabinet. And at the beginning, I was like, what? Like, what the heck am I going to talk about? What does that even mean? So I've discussing it with some guys at work, over a couple cups of coffee and such. And what I realized was this guy right here is my dad, my old man. He told me something when I was very young, when I first got into the military and the fire service, and he said, everybody you ever worked for throughout your career, you should take at least two things from. At least one good thing that you want to emulate, and one thing that maybe isn't as desirable, one thing that you definitely don't want to do in your career, whether you move up or not. And at the time, I was just like, okay, yeah, Dad, whatever. And then I started thinking about this file cabinet, and I'm like, well, this is kind of what I've been doing my whole career, right? It's like stashing away these files and, so to speak, you know, my whole life I've been, making a T chart of everybody I've ever worked with or for in this file cabinet. So then going back to, like I said, I was just working with Jimmy Mack on Sunday. They came down, the leadership under fire staff came down to Cherry Hill, and they were running it was actually a professor from Yale came, and he's running a little bit of a study, which I would be way out of my league to deep dive. But this right here is Jimmy Mack on the left, as you all know, but that guy on the right, I'm sure you don't know. That's my senior man, Lenny Kors. And these two fellows right here, I was actually standing a little bit away from them, hanging out with some of the junior guys, and I saw this conversation happening, and I was like, I have to go over there and listen to these guys. Those two standing right there have a total of 71 years fire service experience. So if they're having a conversation, I want to be there and I want to be listening. So then it made me think, like, what kind of file cabinet do these guys have? 71 years between the two of them. I mean, that's unmatched. Like, between the life experiences they have, fire duty, all kinds of incidents, different people they've worked with, leadership they've worked under. You name it, these guys have lived 3 times the amount of fire service experience that I have, or more so. I was like, when I was picturing their file cabinet, I was picturing, is it Bruce Almighty, where he pulls out the file cabinet, it goes all the way across the room. I'm like, that's what these two have right here. So it's kind of like a daunting task to me. I'm like, well, how am I ever going to get a file cabinet to match or compete with these guys? And what I realized is, it's not about how many times I've done this or how many years I've been working on the rig, and probably better said, those two gentlemen, their file cabinet isn't about how many times they've done this, how many hallways they've pushed, how many searches they've done, how many doors they've forced. That's not what makes them the great performers on the fire ground or the great leaders. What it really is stuff like this right here. So that's my senior man, Lenny Kors. And I'll give you a little summary on my senior man, Lenny Kors. He's in the kitchen in the other room right now. He's got 41 years. He died a few years ago. He was dead for a few minutes, and they brought him back. A couple months later, he's back on the job. He's the guy that when we told him we were going over to the training academy, because there's a doctor from Yale who's a doctor, you see standing right there. When we told him we were going, he's doing some study, we got to do some searches. There was a lot of inappropriate language coming out of his mouth. Then can't they just leave us alone on a Sunday? Doesn't he know there's football on? Yada, yada, yada. Then as soon as we get out there, this is them two having a conversation on what the human mind does when they're searching, and how we get stressed and what that does to our performance, our cognition. And they're going back and forth, and Lenny's really trying to dial in on how he could do a better search. He's trying to dial in his file cabinet and just become better at his job all around. And it made me think, these guys, with all this time, are just still striving to get better. And that's what makes them the great performers and leaders that they are. And then I kind of pivoted to the leadership thing, and I'm like, it's crazy to me that this guy is such a leader in the Cherry Hill Fire Department, and Jimmy Mack, I know, has the same reputation in New York City Fire Department, but they've had probably a total of 0 formal training in leadership, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because just to get on the job, we put our recruits through, our new hires through however long your respective academy may be. Here in Cherry Hill, excuse me, you go through roughly like a 10-week academy, 5 days a week, about 10-hour days, just to ride the back step on the slowest engine in town. But to become an officer, a person of a formal leadership position, you get handed a few books to say, study them, you take a test, and now you're an officer. It's kind of crazy to think about. Maybe it should be, you know, maybe it should be backwards. Like, it's kind of the only organization in the world that you don't need a further education to move up. So, like, this guy's a great leader not because of, the stack of papers that he has, or, the letters next to his name or certificates or whatever. It's because of the amount of people that trust and respect him. And that being said, we come to this guy. And when I talk about trust and respect in the fire service, this guy's Assistant Chief Brett DeLuca. There's nobody in the Cherry Hill Fire Department that is trusted or respected more than him. I lean on this guy heavily for advice in the day-to-day. Recently, I went through the promotional process. I did okay. I'll likely get promoted soon. And so I was kind of discussing with him on like the future as far as that goes. And one thing he told me is, he's like, you know what you should do the first day in your new company? What you should change? It's like, oh, what? He said, absolutely nothing. He's like, you get in there, and just because you did good on this process and you get in there, you're the lieutenant, it doesn't mean anybody trusts or respects you. That needs to be earned. So you need to get in there, earn these guys' trust and respect before you even change one thing. And it's funny because I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm in 100%. How come that wasn't in our test? How come that wasn't, in any of this process? I don't think I missed a chapter in Norman's book through this process, but here we are. Another thing he told me was, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room just because you're a lieutenant. He's like, you just have to know who is and how to find them. And I think about that all the time. And what he's really speaking about is being humble. So I'm taking these lessons from this guy and storing away in my filing cabinet. Like, okay, earn people's trust and respect, be humble, listen much more than you're speaking, even in a leadership position. And I'm just trying to be a total sponge on not only this guy right here, but everybody I work with. Excuse me. So these are some other guys that I learned from. One thing that you may or may not recognize from when Jake was giving my little intro is, I train jiu-jitsu. I coach at McHugh Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here in Jersey. It's like my side gig. So I work with these awesome guys who have taught me more probably about life and leadership than anything else. I always say that I've learned more about life, leadership, and people on these mats than I have actually about jiu-jitsu. But one of our concepts we talk about as the coaches, that all the coaches need to be, is this like GAS principle, so to speak. So GAS being an acronym for, you need to be genuine, authentic, and sincere. And these guys think of it just like as a jiu-jitsu coach, which is cool and fine, and I agree. But I thought of it like a leader in the fire service, right? Like, when you think of someone in the fire service that you look up to or you want as your leader, I mean, I can't name something better than having someone who's genuine, authentic, and sincere. And we break it down even more than that. GAS, the GAS principle, to just be give a shit, right? We say nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that should be at the forefront of your leadership file cabinet right there. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is what wins over that trust and respect with the men to move on to be a great leader in the fire service. Another thing we talk about all the time being a coach for McHugh Jiu-Jitsu is we need to be the ideal. So you think about like, what does that mean? We need to be the ideal. Well, I think of it in we need to be the ideal in all aspects of our life, right? So these guys that look up to me as their coach, and these kids specifically that look up to me as their coach, I need to not be using, foul language out in public or coming in looking like a slob or anything. I think about doing all the small things right to be the ideal. And I do that. I try and think about that in the firehouse too, not walking past the mess without cleaning it up. I think about, oh man, I don't want to go in the gym today, but I got to show these guys, like, be the person they look up to. Let me go in the gym and do what's right, even when I don't want to. And one of the things that comes with that is reading. And I don't know if there's any like readers in here, but if you're not reading and trying to better yourself, you're leaving something on the table. And I know that sounds crazy because we're not like college professors or whatever. At the end of the day, it's the fire service. But I truly feel that if you're not constantly reading, you're leaving something on the table. This is we just finished up the promotional process, so my reading material has largely been John Norman and fire officers' principles and practices. But now that that's done, this is the read I'm in right now, and this is a book about a guy that goes to these storytelling sessions in New York City, and he's talking about telling stories, and you think like, what does that have to do with the fire service? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I'm only a short amount into it, and I can already tell you that I'm taking things from this book that I could apply to the job when I'm communicating with the men and things like that. A side note to that would be anyone who is in on this mental performance, human performance, coaching aspect of things. I'll recommend the show Ted Lasso. If you haven't watched it, and if you have, maybe go back and watch it again. One, it's just a great show, so I definitely recommend you should watch it. But also, there's some great like coaching nuggets in there that you can catch once you're dialed in on like what it means to be a good coach and what's actually important to being a good leader. There's some great nuggets in there you can catch. Moving on, this is my firehouse. This is the gym. And I wanted to throw this in just because I wanted to talk about like I said, with being the ideal. I'd be remiss to mention that you should be reading books without mentioning you should also be taking care of yourself physically. It's funny to me to watch firemen, leaders in the fire service, whether they're officer type or, senior men, middle guy, junior guy, whatever, everyone's a leader at some point in time, and they take care of their rig. They have it spotless. They take care of their equipment. Everyone's cleaning up their tools and such. Your SCBA, your radio, everything, but they're not taking care of themselves, like their meat vehicle, so to speak. So it's important we take care of ourselves on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you should be taking care of yourself and getting all you can get out of this job. Cool. So, real quick, before we move on, I want to speak about a thought exercise that Jason Bresley did with us. I'd like to do it with you guys now. So, what I want you to think about is a leader in your life. It could be your current boss. It could be a boss of the past, somebody you work with. Whoever, past, present, whatever, but you want this person to be they're going to be your leader at a call of significance coming up tonight. We'll say you're, classic, what everyone talks about, 2 a.m. It could be a fire, it could be an NBA rescue, whatever applies to your world. But it's going to be a call of significance, like the one of your career. And this person's going to be your boss. They're going to be your leader in the situation. So whoever you have in your head, I know who I'm thinking in my head. I want you to write down 3 traits this person has. right now, right? 3 reasons why they're the person you picked. So again, I'll just give you a second to write that down. Hopefully I didn't put you guys to sleep already. And then real quick, whoever wants to unmute, turn on your camera, don't turn on your camera, whatever you want to do. Somebody just give me like one of those characteristics or traits on there.
Calm.
What do you got, Chad?
Calm.
Calm. All right. Yep, I like it. Just calm. That's all we want.
Knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable. Beautiful.
Someone
Prepared.
who's genuine.
Prepared. What was the other one?
Genuine.
Genuine. You kind of stole mine there, but I'll take it.
Decisive.
Decisive. Cool. Humble. Huge. Love it. So like, Bresler did the same exercise to us, and this is where I don't know, maybe he like won me over with the leadership thing. He's like, those are all the traits and characteristics that we find important in the people that are our leadership, right? And going with us into the darkest hallways or whatever, right? That's what the men really find important. Do we test or judge on any of them in our formal promotional process, or like when we grant someone, to be a formal leader in the fire service? And I mean, unless there's a chapter on humility or being genuine or any of those other things that you guys mentioned, unless there's a chapter in Norman's book that I missed, I don't think we do. So maybe that's where we missed the mark a little bit. But that being said, to move on, I want to give you guys a little bit of homework. Actually, you didn't think you were getting homework. And sorry, I'm listening to the fellas go to possibly a fire right now, so that's why I'm kind of like distracted. But anyway, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of homework, and what I want you to do is keep a notebook with you for the next, I don't know, it could be a week, 2 weeks, whatever you decide. And what I want you to do is put a solid effort into paying attention when someone is exemplifying leadership. Good, bad, indifferent, I don't care. It could be your lieutenant, captain, battalion chief. It could be your senior man. It could be the junior man. It could be your wife, your husband, your kids, a coach, anybody. And what I want you to do is when you notice this leadership thing happening, I want you to write it down. And just write down what they're doing. Like I said, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. You can make that decision. And just write it down. Write it down. Write it down all week. And at the end of the week, you have made yourself a little like leadership file cabinet, so to speak. Excuse me. Now you did it quite literally, writing it in a notebook. But when you think about it, that's what we're doing every day. We're just not doing it with such intent, right? We're not writing it down every day. But if you do it over this next week, I think it'll really open your eyes to how much we do it without even realizing we do it. Like I did this specifically leading up to promotional time because a little bit different. I was like, okay, what kind of lieutenant am I going to be if and when I get promoted? So I just started, oh, this lieutenant does this lieutenant does that. When I realized I was kind of always doing that just without such intention. But I think if we move on through our careers with a little bit more intention, it'll be well worth it. But moving on from my little bit of a leadership rant, maybe we'll talk about kind of like the performance side of this file cabinet. So when we talk about building a performance file cabinet, okay, what I think is, how do we stack this file cabinet and get the most out of everything we're doing? And the reason why I put this picture, and when I say get the most out of everything we're doing, is this is the lieutenant at the rescue on my shift from a fire we went to, Saxby Terrace. This is largely from one fire. It's his helmet. Yeah, this is from one fire. So how can we take the lessons learned from going to a fire of significance like this with 2 people trapped that we were trying to make a push for? How do we, the laundry list of lessons and files to store in a file cabinet from an experience like this, how do we get the most out of them? For ourselves, for other people, You know, how do we share it with the guys that weren't at that fire, for the junior guys that are coming up, everything. How are we building this file cabinet? And so kind of bring it back to this picture where I said, like, if these two are talking, you know, I want to be listening. We need to lean on the people with those experiences and hear their stories, and ask them about it. You know, if you come in a week later, you hear someone had a good run or emergency, you need to pepper them at the coffee table. You want to hear all the details about it and pick up any little detail for your file cabinet you can. When I got hired here at Cherry Hill, I worked for the captain here at the squad company. It was Captain Wade Houlihan, and he was next up on the battalion's list. So everyone told me, you need to squeeze as much juice out of this guy as you can before he gets promoted, because he's the best fire officer in the fire department. He's now the current chief of the fire department, and he's never going to see this video, so I'm not just brown nosing. But every night when everyone else would go to bed, I'd go up to his office because he'd still be up on his computer, and I'd sit down and I'd ask him a question. Maybe it was about a fire that I found in the computer files. One night I walked in just with a 6-foot New York hook, and I was like, "Hey, teach me about this tool." I mean, anything. I would just walk in and pick this guy's brain, and I would immediately go back to my bunk room, you know, midnight or whatever, however long we were talking, and just put pen to paper, take notes. And I didn't know it at the time, but now looking back on it, that's what I was doing. I was stacking my file cabinet, or I should say stealing from his filing cabinet. All his experiences I was taking and trying to learn whatever I could out of them. So that's what we need to do for, like, guys like this right here. Right? We need to get everything we can out of the senior men while they're here. One of the things we have done recently here in the Cherry Hill Fire Department is we started a podcast, an internal podcast. So, you know, unfortunately, sorry guys, you can't go look it up and listen to it. It's just for members of the fire department. But what we've done is we realized that the Cherry Hill Fire Department consolidated and became the Cherry Hill Fire Department in 1994. So as you may or may not know, with the pension system in New Jersey, that puts us right about at the time where we're having a major turnover in personnel. A lot of experience and skill going out the door, and did go out the door in the past 2 or 3 years. So this podcast has really helped us. You know, we've interviewed a lot of senior members about their careers at large, about significant incidents that they've been on, fires, all kinds of, I mean, you name the emergency, and pick their brains about stories that you may not have heard if you didn't work in their firehouse or you didn't work on their shift or something. And it's kind of been a cool way to really hear the story of some of the guys that came before us, and to share it with the newer guys that haven't met them, and, you know, guys 20, 30 years down the line that will, you know, possibly never get to meet them at all, let alone work with them, so they can hear those stories. There's a couple ways that we can really get the most out of our experiences to add to our filing cabinet. And one lesson I learned from the junior man on my company, he just got off probation, is he journals every day. Every shift he does this. I need to start doing this. I don't. I actually just found this today. I took these pictures to put them on here. This is what he writes every day. And I'm like, man, I should have been doing this my whole career. And I need to start this now, to the point where I was like, you know, Nooch, let's find a page in your book for me to take a picture of. He talks about, you know, any fires he went to, how many calls we had. He even puts in here, you know, what we had for dinner. But being able to go back and kind of look at these, you know, spark his memory up about this fire he went to in Voorhees on second alarm, just open up those stories and share it with guys that weren't there, you know, some guys that come up under him that he can teach some lessons. Super informal, but I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'm immediately going to, what do you call it? I'll put it into my practice. So what I'm going to attempt to do now as we move on, what the Cherry Hill Fire Department did in a more formal aspect. This is something we did formally, I guess formally, in the Cherry Hill Fire Department, and we use this job form. So all this is after a incident of significance, we send out this job form to everybody that was there. So as it's slowly picking up. Like I was on this fire, so we'll pick this one. There's only 10 submissions, but I'll click this, see if we can get to open up here. So it's just a survey. It asks some basic stuff. You'll see here in a second as I pull up the results. Here we go. So the date that the person did the survey. Let's see. This was supposed to be the date of the incident. And you can see like some people wrote something different. The address, person's rank. We don't attach a name to it. Although I guess you could figure it out if you're, if you're the only probie there, the only battalion chief. But where they were working, and we asked, was there a mayday? Was there a member in distress? I'll get a little bit more into these in a different view here in a second. Were you familiar with the occupancy, rate of difficulty in locating the fire? So just, it doesn't take as long as it looks. Most of these are multiple choice. You go through and just click through when we send out this survey. But one of the cool things we do here also is some of our guys wear these whoops, right? Or like an Apple Watch, but it's just, are you wearing a device of any kind? And it starts asking some questions. If you're wearing a whoop, what's your strain score? If you guys aren't familiar with the whoop, it's just a little heart rate monitor. Track, anything you want to track. It's probably the best biometric device out there. Average heart rate and all this. And what we're doing is we're just building a data set. We are in the infancy stage with this, but there are definitely some lessons learned. So on even the more formal end, we have a PIA policy, and this speaks to everything to like when we do a formal PIA, who participates, how it's done. This is a 4-page document, it says. Someone from the last iteration we did in the spring of this class asked for this policy. I'm more than happy to share it. It's not super secret stuff. So anybody wants to get eyes on it and maybe compare it to yours, or if you don't have one that's a starting place for your own, just shoot me an email and I'll get you that policy. To whoever may want it, that might be interested in it. Another thing we've been exploring is having some sort of wearable camera. Yeah, so what I've heard from guys is when they get back and start watching it, that they're like, oh, I didn't know that happened that way, or like they're picking up on things that they didn't notice in the moment. I mean, think about, the NFL and all these guys who make way more money than we do, how much they're not in life or death situations, but like they're watching game tape and all this over and over again. And we just kind of go do our job and leave, and it is what it is, high five on the front lawn. So I'm super interested in this. We haven't put it in effect yet. Obviously, the powers that be have a lot to say with it. There's some touchy legal stuff that I guess that would need to go on. I think it'd be a great tool. Yeah, so we have like a shared drive here, and every incident, that's deemed big enough, I guess, by the battalion chief gets put into a file folder. Every year has one, every month has one, and then you go in, you can look it up via address, and they put in there pretty much anything that we could find on it. Everything from the radio recordings to the 911 call, any pictures that were found, from buffs or whoever. We have cameras on the rigs, on the outside of the rigs. So we'll put those videos on there, but we haven't gone to like body worn cameras yet. So I would assume when we do, it'll be in there. And the thought is like, I could go on, I got on the job in 2016. I could go on later and pull up a fire from 2005 that everybody talks about. Check all this out. I see all good that could come from doing this. Like I said, we haven't done it yet, but some of you other guys or gals, you want to start exploring it, man, I definitely think it'd be pretty cool. I won't beat a dead horse on talking about like how we can kind of get all the juice out of the squeeze on incidents that we can, but I kind of want to pivot to training a little bit on how we stack our file cabinet based off the training that we're doing. And the biggest takeaway, that I think I could give you guys a tangible is to make your training as realistic as possible. I'm not gonna, I don't have any tips or tricks to teach you how to force a door or how to stretch a line. I think everyone's more than capable of these things, and training your members and yourselves on how to do it. But something in this book really interests me, and I think it had a direct correlation to the fire service. So I highly recommend this book if you guys want to write it down or whatever. It's super interesting. Not, you know, somebody would argue that it's a more law enforcement book, sure, but with a little bit of open-mindedness, you can see how it applies to us. And I'll give you just a quick, like, Cliff Notes example. So this book by Dave Grossman talks about kind of like these, well, you can see it right there, the psychological and physiological happenings of combat, right? So what's going on in your mind and your body in combat. And in one of the parts, he talks about training and how we resort to the level of our training. We don't rise to the occasion. And he tells a story of a law enforcement officer training on disarming bad guys, so to speak, right? So taking away their weapon. And when they would train on it, they would take away the weapon. Cool, yeah, I did it. And they would hand it back to them. And they would take away their weapon. Cool, yeah, I did it, and hand it back to them. And you see where this is going. Well, it happened in real life. So this officer disarms somebody and immediately hands him back his weapon. And I was like, he starts talking about training scars and how this happens. And I know now my brother's a law enforcement officer. He's like, yeah, that's a known story in the law enforcement world. So now when they train on disarming combatants, they purposely, they turn around and put the weapon on a table, and for the next rep, the person walks around them and picks it up, because they learned their lesson on this training scar. So I started thinking about, like, what kind of training scars have I been, beating into my own head and possibly, like, hurting, like, the recruits, because I teach in the recruit academy also. And some simple things I thought of were, like, not turning on my flashlight. We go in to do a search drill or something, and like, oh yeah, don't use your flashlight. So I don't turn it on. And I realized I'm coming out of these fires that we go to with a flashlight hanging off of me that I never turned on. Or maybe like the tick, because we do a search and we're like, oh, you're not going to use the tick. You're going to do it blacked out. Well, then I find myself halfway through a fire. I haven't turned my tick on yet. I'm like, what the heck's going on? But it's more than that. Think about, like, when we're training our new recruits and they're searching a burn building. That's just, 4 walls and a floor in a room. Or how many times have you moved a hose line through a parking lot? So we kind of took this at the Cherry Hill Fire Department, and we're lucky enough to work for some great leadership. We have some leeway to run with our crazy ideas, which is awesome. And so I'd like to share kind of like what we did here with you guys. And Tom, I think you might be able to appreciate this in your new position here. So working on a budget, we settled for some C boxes or some Condex boxes. Pay no mind to the 2-story setup in the rear that was manufactured by a company that came. It didn't work out well for us. That building is not used. It's actually going to get demolished. But these 2 C boxes you see sitting here, I'll kind of show you. I have a few pictures how we got creative, and we have the best search trainer I have used and seen to date. Sunday, this is the search trainer that the leadership on the fire staff came down. Jimmy Mack, Keith, who's usually on here, some other guys, Dr. Andy Morgan. This is what we used. And so that's all it was some C boxes. And as we went down the line, the rescue company got involved. They got to use their torches, do some cutting and burning training. And we kind of just got to work trying to manufacture a little search trainer. We framed out some windows and doors. We cut some like windows into the side of these boxes, which you'll see also as I move on here. Boom, like you can kind of see one in the distance over here. And the reason I put these 2 pictures specifically is we felt that it was important and worth sheathing the walls like you see here, and not just leaving them kind of, bumpy like the true outside of a C box. So the thought process is, like, when we put someone in here to search and train, we want to actually take them somewhere else in their mind, right? You shouldn't be thinking I'm just crawling around the Condex box, but however that you're actually completing a search. So, we got it all framed out. We made the floors all even and nicey nice with some plywood. And we did some trash picking, so to speak. We built up some bunk beds, as you see there on the right. This is actually on the left. You can see in the back there's like a porcelain sink, and that's a bathtub there. It's set up to be like a bathroom. And this is what we train search in. The beautiful thing about these is we also move hose lines through them, wet, dry, and you name it. Now, we can't burn in here, which is fine. We use alternate facilities for that. But the search training we do in here and the advancing of hose lines is way more realistic than we could get almost anywhere else. You can even see, if you take notice, to both sides, I guess. We even, got pre-hung doors to put in there, make it a little more realistic. And even take note of the dummy. Now, I'm not a dummy salesman. There are downfalls with any fire rescue dummy you buy. I think these ones we have are Ruth Lee, and they've seemed to work good for us. Now, like I said, it is what it is. They're still dummies, but what they're not, which I hate, is hose head dummies. Because everyone's been in a trainer before with a hose head dummy, and it doesn't feel like a person, doesn't move like a person. It's not human-like at all. So I think it's worth it to spend a little bit more to get the most realistic dummy you can get. And something we've done, I didn't put a picture here, I really should have. I apologize for that, but in our victim removal training is we put Tyvek suits on these guys and lube them up with some good old-fashioned KY jelly. And you should really see the hard time that guys have trying to remove these victims. It makes it like worst case scenario, severe burn victim, hard to grab a hold of. So I don't think I need to, speak to the fact that that's not the first the first victim someone should find. The first time they're searching a building for a new recruit, probably not the time to do that. We should crawl, walk, run. However, at the culmination of a recruit academy, when these guys are about to hit the street, our recruits are pulling out one of these Ruth Lee dummies with a Tyvek suit on, and probably a few more sandbags duct taped to them to make them a little heavier also. Even bunk beds there on the right. It's fun. I've been assigned to the squad my whole career. I've never been assigned to the truck. That doesn't mean we don't search, but it's just not one of our main responsibilities. And when we built these bunk beds, I was just amazed that I've never trained searching a bunk bed before. I couldn't believe wow, I've been training search for I don't know, 12 years, whatever it is, and I've never trained on actually getting up on the top bunk and searching it. So it's just adding those little details and getting creative to enhance our training. My biggest takeaways, or what my biggest takeaway would be for you guys, is if you really want to get the most out of your training, to add files to your file cabinet, you need to do everything in your power to make training as realistic as possible. That's what's really going to embed it into someone's brain when they're falling to the level of their training at these emergency scenes. But other than that, fellas, that's really all I have for you. So I just threw a little motivational quote up there. It's what the guys hear me say at the firehouse every day. If you stay ready, you'll never have to get ready. If I had to sum it up, it's that when we're building this file cabinet, like I said at the very beginning, anything and everything I've ever learned came from somebody else. It's not my own. It's not original. Put intent on building your file cabinet. Be a sponge. Listen to everybody. Keep striving to better yourselves. Clearly, you all care about that because you're sitting in this class listening to me talk on Zoom right now. So keep doing what you're doing. But I appreciate you guys' time.
The Leadership Under Fire podcast provides a platform that helps to prepare performance leaders to navigate the moral, mental, emotional, intellectual, and physical rigors in high-risk and ultra-competitive settings by developing strength of mind, body, character, and critical thought. For more on this, visit leadershipunderfire.com.